everybody. In this video, I'm going to be talking about vessel sinks and just give you kind of a brief overview so that you're not too scared of it. If you've ever installed any other kind of lavatory or kitchen faucet, you probably can handle this. It seems like a lot because they're really fancy, but let's get going. All right, this is a glass one of the square variety. It has what I call the old-fashioned well hand pump faucet design, which is really popular. Here's another glass one. This one's just kind of a painted or a stained glass. And as you see, these vessels are just mounted to the countertop. It's a faucet and a vessel. The drain is very much similar to any other lavatory drain. Now this one here is a wall mount. So you're going to have to get your rough-in guys involved because there's actually a wall in there. And your trim out guy is just going to be putting the spout and the handles on. This one's neat because it's got this special filler faucet for it that matches the vessel. And when you turn it on, the handle in the middle, you push it up, the water just kind of comes out from around it, nice and gentle, and then cascades into the vessel there. Really fancy. This one here is glass. Now this one, it looks super nice, but it's not too popular because it leaves little water spots when the water dries up and you kind of have to clean it. These vessel sinks, you're going to put these in a powder bath, a half bath, maybe a guest bath, something really fancy. And when you have people over entertaining, you know, they'll comment you on, oh, that sink is so neat. Now this one here is actual wood. That's been turned on a lathe, and it has the wall mount faucet. This is a really fancy one and probably pretty expensive and one of a kind, very unique because it's natural. Here's another natural one. This one's stone that's been ground down and polished. You can kind of see the drain piece down in there. Some real precision work. They also have the filler there. This one is ceramic, and if you look in the mirror there, you can kind of see how that spout goes. It's real narrow, and it puts out kind of a nice little ribbon of water. I like this one a lot. This one's one of my favorite because it actually dispenses the water onto that center stone piece, and it doesn't splash. It just gracefully runs off the sides, and that piece in the middle can come out of there. And it's a regular little drain down at the bottom. So if you ever had to clean it or whatever, you can take that piece out. Now this one here, you can imagine what this one does when you turn that faucet on, how the water runs down. Now, looking at this, I think they put the wrong faucet on this one because that cold handle is kind of bumping up against the wall. They probably would have done better with a single handle faucet. Now, to mount your faucet, if you've ever done any single hole kitchen faucets, it's the same exact way. It's got some kind of nut or some kind of screw that mounts it underneath. Pull out the directions. This one here has this little threaded rod and this nut. This one here is the most popular one. That nut screws on there, and then you screw down those Phillips screw, and it really, really locks it into place. Now, some of these guys come with a special tool. And now, as the plumber, as the installer, I would go ahead and hang on to that tool. Don't throw it away because you might have a use for it later. You might have to come take this one apart or use it on a different one. And this one here is just a wing nut. Really simple. They try to keep all this stuff as simple as they can. Now, let's talk about the wall mount. Now, the wall mount, if you're the trim out guy, you're the fixture installer, it's going to be really easy because it's just two handles and a spout and probably some set screws. You are going to have to do some work with the rough end because this does have a rough end valve that goes behind the wall, behind the sheetrock. So make sure you check your heights and you're dead on where you need to be. Now, here's an example of what the actual vessel looks like. And it's just a drain assembly. It's just a tailpiece up under there like any other lavatory sink. It's just not a drop-in, and it's not an undermount basin. It's a vessel. Now, something to point out on this one here, it has the overflow channel on it. So make sure you get your drain assembly that has the holes in it for that overflow channel, because if you don't, you get one of the solid ones, that overflow is not going to work. It's just going to fill up with water, and it's going to get pretty nasty over time. You would drill a hole in the countertop if one's not already there and set the basin on it. Now, this other little cutaway here is one that does not have the overflow channel because it's solid, which most vessel sinks do not have that overflow channel because they're glass or something. Now, here is your average pop-up assembly, one we've been using for years and years and years. It has the rod on it. Now, these are typically not going to work for a vessel sink because of the spacing. You don't have enough rod, you don't have enough linkage there to actually have that lift rod, that pop-up rod to connect. This is more of the more popular style of pop-up. This one is a touch. You would click it down, click it up. It's a little cartridge that fits in there. I would call this a toe touch because when they first hit the plumbing scene for me, they were used on bathtubs and you would click it with your toe. But that cartridge does come out of there. If it ever gets some hair, junk, or whatever, you can just grab it, pull it out. Some of them actually screw in, but the little O-ring slide-in one is the most popular out there now. Now, this next one, this is an old style one. This is just a lift and turn. Most of your new construction bathtubs today have a lift and turn style drain, and you just lift it and turn it, and it locks into place. It's kind of an old mechanism. Now, this one's real fancy. I've seen this one a bunch. They call this the flip drain. I like to call it the coin because that's actually like a little coin that's stuck down in there, and if you flip it, you can grab it with 2 fingers, and it'll just come right out of there, and then if you've got to clean your drain out or whatever, you can. And you can buy replacements for these if you lose one. But it's just neat. It's just real fancy stuff. Something else to point out is you can see the 2 different ones here. One is for your overflow, and one is a non-overflow style. So you can get them in both varieties. Now this one is the one you commonly see. You also see this one in commercial sinks and stuff. This one is so you can't stop it. You're not going to have an overflow on this one. It's just that strainer. And most of the time with your vessel sinks, they're in a powder bath or some fancy bathroom. You're not going to be in there, brushing your teeth or shaving or anything like that. So you don't really need a stopper in it. It's just for washing your hands. Now let's talk about the cabinet. When I was doing these out in the field, I always had a builder or something who would go and buy like a antique piece of furniture, and he'd want me to drill a hole in it and mount a vessel to it, which I did quite a few of them. It's kind of scary because you've got an antique piece of furniture you're about to drill a hole in, and all I can say is measure it 15 times and then measure it again. The one here on the left with this double bowl, that one's going to be real crucial on the measurements because you're not just putting it in the center. This one here is real neat. They call this a floating shelf vessel because the shelf is just kind of hanging there. Now, this is just a piece of butcher block, and somebody's cut it and mounted it to the wall and then dropped the vessel on it. Something to point out, you see that drain underneath? Now, that doesn't look like your normal P-trap. That's something fancy, and you can get them to color match. Here is your regular P-trap. Now, if I put this P-trap under a floating vessel sink, it would look horrible because it's just plastic, old white plastic with these compression nuts. And these things, most of the time, they're not straight and they just look pretty rough. But this is the mainstream way to go. And as long as it's in a cabinet, it's perfectly fine. These things are really durable and they last for a while and they're functional. Now, this would be the upgrade for your P-trap. And when I was a service plumber, I installed a bunch of these or removed a bunch of these that were old and rusted, because once this thing gets some damage to the finish or whatever, it's going to turn to dust. It's just going to rust away. I remember just grabbing them with my channel locks and just tearing them out of there. But this does look a lot better than that white plastic P-trap. Now, you do have other options available that will make this look a lot better, and that's going to be your bottle trap. Now, I know plumbers and plumber apprentices out there are probably going, oh, you can't do that. That's illegal. Well, no, not really, because this is a special fixture, and it falls into a different category because it's exposed. If it's not in a wall or in a crawl space or something like that, it's exposed to where if this thing ever did fill up with dirt or something like that, I can remove the bottle and go clean it out. A lot of them have a plug on the very bottom of them that you can unscrew to dump anything out of there. Of course, here again, this is a really fancy setup. It's a really fancy sink. So you're not really going to be washing, you're not going to wash the dog in it. You're not going to be washing a bunch of dirt down there. So a trap like this is perfectly fine, and they are color matched. You can get bronze, you can get stainless steel, you can get gold, you can get whatever color you want to. Now, while we're talking about it, here's your illegal traps. Now, the first one on there you see is the S-trap. Now, the S-trap was perfectly fine up until like the late 50s, and you still might see them in some houses today. I know I can go to our supplier right now and buy one right off the shelf. They still have them out there. Don't be fooled by the, oh, we got to bring it up to code thing. No, you don't. The code for your house is going to be the year your house was built. So if your house was built in 1970, you're working off the 1970 code book. You don't have to bring it up to code unless you're renovating more than like 50%. I don't know the exact numbers. It's a dollar amount and a percentage of the house. If you're gutting it and redoing everything, then yes, you have to follow the current building codes. But if you're just making a repair to something existing, you're perfectly fine to go back with what you took out. So an S-trap is legal on a 1970 something house or 1950 something house. Crown vent. Crown vent, you can't do the crown vent. They say that just waste and stuff can splash up into the vent there and eventually cause it to clog. They really want to see that sanitary T turned around the other way in the wall. I don't know if crown vent was ever an actual legal P-trap. Okay, the other one we got here is the bell trap. Now, I've seen these used as floor drain traps before, and no, we can't use them in residential application, but I have seen them in like pool houses and stuff. And the deal with them, why they can be legal, is if you can access it and if you can pop the little screen up and get down in there and shop vac it out to clean the dirt, the debris, the sand. And these do work pretty well as a floor drain trap. Okay, the last one here is your drum trap. Now, these are illegal. These things are so horrible. I know up until the 70s, it was 60s and 70s, drum traps were really popular. They like to put them under bathtubs and showers and stuff. And as you can see in the bottom there, they're showing a couple little round objects. They fill up with dirt. And once they fill up with dirt, they quit working. Now, here's an example of one. They did come with a big nut on the bottom that you could essentially unscrew and dump the stuff out and then put back together, and it would work. But once that thing's been sitting there 30-something years, you're not going to get that cap off. I've cut plenty of those out and replaced them with regular P-traps. All right, well, that is it for our little pedestal video here. Quick, simple. It's basically so you're not scared if you want to go try to install one of these things. They're not bad. They're like any other faucet. And this last picture here, you can get vessel sinks to match the bathtub. So you can have a freestanding bathtub that looks exactly like your vessel sink. And they come in all kinds of crazy colors. Well, thanks, guys. I hope you learned something.